everybody. So I figured I would make a quick recovery video for you guys to do. These stretches are designed to do after you walk or run to kind of help your muscles reset a little bit, and then that way you'll be good as new for the next time you need to get out there and log miles. So if you have a yoga mat, use a yoga mat. If you don't, these can just be done on the floor. We're not going to be doing any down dog or any stretches that require you to have traction. So go ahead and come down and sit on your knees with your toes touching in the back and your knees wide. We're going to do some child's pose to tabletop just to kind of help release any fluid that's built up in our hips. So go ahead and come down on your mat, stretching your hands forward and then putting your forehead down to the mat. Just take a breath in here. And then you're going to inhale and come up, and then exhale and go back. So the only thing you're moving is your torso, and you're just going to move with your breath. So you exhale on the way down, and then you inhale on the way up. And this is just getting some mobility in your hips, kind of flush out anything that was in there from your walk or your run. We'll do one more round, so inhale up, exhale back, and then go ahead and come on up to tabletop. So you're placing your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips, and we're gonna do a couple rounds of cat-cow. So inhale, drop your belly, look up towards the sky, pulling your chest through, and then exhale, round for cat, pushing the floor away with your hands. And then inhale for cow, looking up, dropping your belly, and then inhaling back for cat. Inhale for cow, exhale back to cat. We'll do one more round. Inhale for cow, exhale for cat. So we're gonna go ahead and come into runner's lunge. So take your right leg and bring it around. So that way you're set up in kind of a lunge position. Your left knee can still be back down on the ground. And then go ahead and just bend and release your left leg. You'll feel a nice little pulse stretch in your quad. And then go ahead and let your leg lay down on the floor. If you have a puppy that you need to move out of the way, move the puppy out of the way. So now with your right leg bent, we're going to just do some motion here. So kind of go back and then move forward, and you can use this range of motion to whatever feels good. So if you need to go a little deeper to get a stretch, you'll start to feel a stretch in the front of across the front of your hip and your quad, and then coming back, you'll start to feel a stretch in your hamstring, especially if you bring your toes up and flex them towards your knee, and then just kind of moving back and forth, just some organic movement. Just kind of see where everything's at, see if you have any tight points that you need to focus on when we get into our stretches. And one more round, stretching forward and stretching back. So now you're gonna heel toe your right foot outside of so plant your hands as if you were in tabletop, and then you want your right foot to be outside your right hand. And then just kind of stay here, see how this feels. If you feel a nice stretch across the front of your hip, you can stay here. If you want to, you can angle out onto the outside edge of your foot, so that way your knee is kind of pressing down. If that feels good. If that feels good to you and you want to go deeper, you can come down to your forearms if you want to, but you don't have to. I'm just giving you options for if you need to go deeper. So you can just kind of stay here. You can kind of move around a little bit until you feel as deep of a stretch as you need to feel. Really, you want to be feeling this across the front of your hip. Just kind of take a couple deep breaths here. And if you can, try and imagine you're breathing into the front of your left hip. When you breathe in, you're kind of breathing in space to the front of your hip. And then when you're exhaling all the tension out from the front of your hip. Those visual breath cues kind of help also release some of the tension that's in your hip. Take one more round of breath, and then slowly, if you have your foot out on the edge, bring it back towards the center of your mat. And then we're going to go ahead and go back into a half split. So you're going to move your hips back and then flex your toes towards your knee on your right leg. So you're going to feel a stretch in your right hamstring and your right knee. Your knee can be bent or as straight as feels good for you. And then we're just going to be on the tips of our fingers, and then we're just going to kind of melt towards our knee, taking your nose to knee. And then we're just going to kind of do a couple rounds where we straighten, looking up, and then melt. And then inhale up, exhale, melt. Inhale up, exhale, melt. And then you're just going to stay here. If it's too deep, you can shift your hips forward a little bit, bend your knee more or less. Whatever feels good for you. If you start to feel pain, back out. You never want to feel pain when you're stretching. Now, a little bit of discomfort, that's good. If you're feeling discomfort, that's great. If you start to feel a sharp pain, that's when you need to back out of the stretch. Take one more round of breath here. And then go ahead and come forward and bring your right knee back, and then we'll do the same on the left side. So bring your left foot forward, and then just kind of, again, we're going to do that organic motion where we're moving in and out of your right hip now. So you should be feeling a stretch across your right hip flexor. Kind of move forward and backwards. Whatever feels good. If you need to go deeper, when we're doing this organic motion. This is just kind of warming up the muscles so that way when we do the stretch, we can get a little deeper than we normally would. Then once you come to the top, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing where we bend our right leg. Yoga with dogs is always a good time. Just kind of feeling that stretch in your quad. Then again, we're going to do like we did, where our hands are in tabletop position and your left foot is outside of your left hand. And then again, just kind of slowly sinking into that right front hip. Again, if this is good for you, you can always come out to the outside of your left foot with your knee kind of splitting open. You don't want to force this open, but it just kind of helps you get a little deeper into the stretch. And again, come down to your forearms if that feels good, or you can stay up on your hands if you're feeling enough of a stretch in the front of your right hip. And good, just use that breath cues where you're breathing in space to the front of your right hip, and then as you exhale, you're exhaling any tension. Just kind of use those visualizations while you're in this stretch. It'll help release that muscle a little better. Again, I apologize, the puppy chewing on the bone sounds are not the most relaxing, but he's a cute puppy. Take one more round of breath. And then if you have your knee out, just go ahead and bring it back and walk your foot kind of more towards the center of your mat. We'll go into our half splits. So again, flexing your left toes towards your left knee with your bringing your hips back. And again, you should feel a nice stretch in your left hamstring. You may feel a little bit of stretch in your left calf, and that's fine. That's normal. So again, we're just going to do some inhaling, looking up, and then exhale, kind of melt down, bringing your knee to nose. Again, your knee does not have to touch your nose. If you're up here on your fingertips and you're getting a stretch, that's perfect. But we're just going to do some organic motion to kind of get these muscles prepared for a deeper stretch. So inhaling, coming up, exhaling, melting in. One more time, inhale up, and then exhale, melt, and then stay, and just kind of feel your top half kind of melting over your left leg, feeling that stretch in your hamstring. Just really breathing in space to the hamstring and then exhaling any tension. one more round of breath here. And exhale, come on up, bring your knee back to tabletop. And then we're gonna go ahead and do what I like to call fire toes. So I'm going to rearrange the puppy. So you're gonna be on your knees, and then you're gonna bring your toes underneath your feet so that way your toes are flexed, touching the mat, and then your feet are kind of straight up and down. Now, if you feel a stretch in your feet here and this feels good, you can stay here. If you want more, you can slowly walk your hands up the mat, walking them up your leg. And then the fullest expression is you're sitting upright over your one straight line over your feet. Your feet will feel like they are on fire. This is a good thing. This is helping stretching the plantar fascia of your feet and really kind of getting into that where your feet are getting sore. So if you ever have really sore feet after you're walking, this is a great little stretch to do. I like to do it if I'm sitting watching TV. I'll do this while I'm sitting in front of the TV. And if you want a little more, try and press your toes into the mat to kind of engage that muscle a little more. When we engage a muscle while we're stretching it, it kind of helps massage it almost. Again, my lovely assistant Tigger. He is 3 months old. He's very flexible. I'm quite jealous of his flexibility. And if this gets too much, you can always back out, but kind of see if you can stay through the discomfort. If you start to feel pain again, back out, but let's see if we can stay through that discomfort a little bit. Your feet should feel like they are on fire now. If they're not, then your plantar fascia are really stretched out and really great, and I'm very jealous of you. Just stay for one more breath. And then you can release, and we'll just put our feet flat on the floor. I'm gonna stretch out our shins a little bit. So again, your legs will be together, and then you're just sitting over your heels. And then we're just gonna slowly lean back. You can place your hands here. So you're gonna feel a nice stretch in the front of your quads. And then slowly let your knees come up off the ground, and then it'll stretch out the front of your shins. And again, if this is too deep, you can always stay here. Go to whatever level is comfortable for you. If you need a full stretch, you can go back. If you need more of a quad stretch, leave your knees on the ground and just let your body kind of fall away from your quads, and this will be a really nice quad stretch. Just take a couple inhales here. And then go ahead and use your hands to press yourself back up. And then we're going to come down onto our backs. So we're going to finish off with figure 4. So this is like half pigeon. If you know that you can do half pigeon, go for it. Take half pigeon. That's a wonderful hip stretch, but figure 4 is also just as good, and it's not as intense. So this is a good one to do right after you run. So again, I'll kind of shift this way. We're going to take our left ankle and cross it, just setting it right below our right knee with our right foot on the floor. And then you're going to take your left hand and put it through this hole that you've created. And then you can either grab the back of your hamstring or grab the front of your shin, wherever your grip feels good. I like the back of my hamstring because I can get a better grip. And then just slowly pull your right leg towards you, keeping your left foot flexed. You can always use your left elbow to press your left knee out a little bit more. You should be feeling this stretch across the back of your hip and your your glute area. And then just kind of breathe here again, that same breath visualization where you're breathing in space to your hip, and then you're exhaling all the tension. And you can, if you can't bring your leg in very far, that's fine. Bringing your leg in as far as you want is great. If you don't really feel a stretch here, again, you can always take half pigeon. I'll demo that shortly after we're done with this. So again, stay here for a couple minutes if you want to. This is the last stretch of the video, so you can stay here for as long as you want. Just make sure you balance out on the other side. And then you can just release your legs to the floor and kind of shake them out a little bit. And then I will show you half pigeon on the right. Again, you can do figure four, but this is half pigeon. If you want a little bit of a deeper stretch, you can do half pigeon on both sides. So coming back to tabletop position, we're going to bring our right knee towards our right elbow and then our left foot towards our left hand. And then we're going to relocate the puppy. And then just slowly sink down. So you want your right knee to be further outside than your right hip. You don't want it to be in a vertical line. You want your right knee to be outside of your hip. And then you kind of want to rock back and forth to see where you feel a good stretch. The goal is to have both of your hips level. So if you need to put a pillow or a blanket underneath your right hip to level out your hips, that's perfectly fine. And I always like to take a look over my right shoulder. That just helps get everything into alignment. You want your left leg stretched out straight behind you, straight out from your hip, and then your left foot can just be laying on the floor. You don't have to engage. And again, there are several options here. If you feel a good stretch in your right hip, stay here. If you want more, you can sleep your pigeon by slowly walking your hands forward and then melting your torso towards the floor, resting your forehead on a pillow, the floor, a block, whatever you have. And you should feel a really nice juicy stretch in the outside of your right hip. Again, we'll do that breath visualization where you're breathing in space to your right hip and then you're exhaling the tension. And try to release any muscles that you don't need to be using. So make sure your jaw, you're not holding any tension there. I know a lot of people, this is a very intense pose, so a lot of people will hold tension in their jaw. So just make sure that you're relaxed where you can be relaxed and engaged where you need to be engaged. And then again, stay here for a couple minutes if you have the time. And then you can balance out with half pigeon on the left. You can do both figure four and both half pigeon. Both figure four and half pigeon do about the same thing. You can always use figure four as a warm-up for half pigeon and then get a little deeper into half pigeon. You do you. If there are any other stretches that you want to see, feel free to reach out. We've covered most of the major muscle groups. A lot of runners and walkers hold a lot of tension in their hips, especially if they're doing a lot of miles. So that's where you're going to feel a lot of tension. So do these stretches right after you run or after you walk, and that'll kind of help realign things, reset things, and then you can log more miles. Let me know if you guys have any questions. See you, bye.